Well, a team of researchers at Western University is planning to detect and document every tornado in Canada. So far this year, the Northern Tornadoes Project has confirmed 16 tornadoes in our country. Last year, they counted 117 across Canada, as well as the catastrophic spring derecho in Ontario. For a closer look at how the project works, we're joined by lead researcher Greg Kopp. Thanks for joining us on the show this morning.
Good morning.
So, Greg, take us through how you and your team are tracking these tornadoes.
Well, we identify the tornadoes after they happen. So we find the tornadoes by the damage they cause. We use satellite imagery. We have a team that does damage surveys afterwards. We use drones. We get to the ground when there's buildings damaged, and we try to get to every tornado in the country.
Greg, we're looking at some pretty devastating images here of the damage that can happen after tornadoes. Your work does include research on how to make homes more resistant toward this type of severe weather. What does that include?
Absolutely. We believe a lot of the damage from tornadoes up to EF2, which is about 95% of all the tornadoes, can be mitigated by really simple technology. Things like they're called hurricane straps. They were developed in South Florida for hurricanes, as the term kind of implies. And you can hold the roof down. So houses under the wind are vulnerable to uplift. The wind wants to lift the house down, lift the house up, which is kind of counterintuitive. But we need to hold the roof down and hold the walls to the foundation. And we can do that relatively inexpensively and mitigate a lot of the damage.
Greg, do you look to our neighbors to the south, to their tornado season, to learn from what they've gone through?
Absolutely. We look at damage everywhere we can. The first damage surveys I ever did in my career were from hurricanes in Florida, and you learn a lot by observing what's happening, by what's breaking from the storms. We've also done full-scale testing at something called the Three Little Pigs Project, where we tested houses, full-scale houses, to see how they broke, and we did wind tunnel testing. And we do all of that to understand how the wind acts on them and how we can mitigate that damage.
Greg, last week we saw a tornado outbreak in Alberta, 10 tornadoes documented in that province. When we look ahead to this whole season, how is the forecast shaping up?
Well, it's hard for us to predict what's going to happen with tornadoes. They're really dependent on thunderstorms, and so it depends what's happening with thunderstorms. So actually things like the wildfire and the smoke they cause tend to suppress that a little bit. We'll see what's happening this year. We're not quite sure. In any given year, we can't really predict what's going to happen with tornadoes.
Greg, when I started my forecasting career, the average number we kind of threw around was in the 60s for yearly tornadoes in Canada. That number has dramatically changed since your group started investigating tornadoes. Now, has the weather changed, or has our availability to find out what tornadoes happen changed? Are we just seeing them more now that we have better technology?
Well, we're seeing them more. We're trying to track them all down now. We believe that number in the 60s was low, and so we were trying to actually figure out how many truly happened, and we figured it was probably double that, and that's kind of what we're finding now. There are some changes in patterns that we've been observing. They've tended, over the 5 years we've been working, tended to move a little bit more eastward, so we're seeing a bit more in Ontario, Quebec, and fewer in the prairies.
Yeah, which has changed. There was the tornado alley we talked about a lot in Alberta, in that central Alberta corridor. And when you look at the maps that your group has produced over the last 6 or so years, you see that spread further east. That was surprising for me to see as a meteorologist.
Yeah, and additionally, one of my colleagues, Dave Sills, he's done work on when the most severe tornadoes were happening. It seems like they're shifting later in the summer from July into August. And so there are changes happening. We can't attribute this yet to climate change, but things, our population's growing, and as we spread out, the damage is going to continue to increase just because of population growth. And so lots is going on with that. There's still a lot of research to be done.
Well, Greg, is that why you would say your research is so vital for all Canadians?
We think this is really important. Communities get hit every year, and we think a lot of the damage could be mitigated. Things like our electrical grid are susceptible to windstorms, and so that needs to be handled and understood. And so, there's a wide range of reasons why we need to study tornadoes and severe weather in general.
Greg, I'm so pleased you came on the show today. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for mentioning Dave Sills as well. The work you do is fantastic, and I'm glad that we had the chance to catch up today.
Thanks, Kelsey. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.